Hello, everybody. Dave McKnight here. Welcome to this webinar. We're very, very excited to roll it out. We're grateful to have so many of you that are on the call today to learn about the benefits that will accrue to you and your practice as a result of POZ Wealth Management. So we're going to dive right in. I would like to begin by giving a little bit of background as to why we have decided to create POZ Wealth Management, and we're going to approach this sort of through the back door, and we're going to do so by talking about longevity risk. Now, why would we talk about longevity risk? Because longevity risk is the number one concern on all of the studies that have ever been done with retirees across the country. Longevity risk is the number one concern. Okay, it's not tax rate risk, believe it or not, it's longevity risk. So people are concerned about outliving their money. They don't want their their life to last longer than their money. And one of the issues with longevity risk, as you know, many of you who have studied lifetime income and longevity risk, you know that longevity risk is particularly pernicious because it magnifies all of the other risks that people face in retirement: sequence of return risk, withdrawal rate risk, inflation, long-term care risk. The longer you live, the more likely you are to succumb to one of those risks. Now, historically, people have typically dealt with longevity risk. They've mitigated longevity risk by using two basic approaches. These are approaches that have been talked about by Dr. Wade Pfau at American College. Tom Hegna's talked about this to a great extent. The first is a probability-based approach, which basically says if you accumulate enough money in your stock market portfolio, statistically speaking, you can weather any financial storm. Okay, no matter what the stock market does, you are going to have your money last as long as you do, so long as you moderate your distributions. And William Bengen back in 1992 did some Monte Carlo scenarios. He did thousands of them, and he basically said, look, you got an 80% chance, 85% chance of never running out of money if you follow the 4% rule, which basically says never take out more than 4% of your retirement balance on day one, adjusted for inflation. Day one of retirement, you'll never, statistically speaking, you're not likely to run out of money. And then the second approach is what we call the safety first approach. It basically says, oh, by the way, a probability-based approach can be very, very expensive. And most experts have revised downward the 4% rule. They're now calling it the 3% rule. Tom Hegna calls it the 2.5% rule. But let's just talk real quick about the 3% rule. That means if you need $100,000 above and beyond what your Social Security or pension provides, divide 3% into $100,000. That means you'll need $3.333 million starting day one of retirement to get that high likelihood of never running out of money. Most Americans are not going to get there, so it's not a very realistic way to mitigate longevity risk. The second way to do it is through what we call the safety first approach, which basically says, let's take a portion of your stock market portfolio, let's hand it over to an insurance company whose job it is to mitigate longevity risk. And in exchange for that corpus of money that you give the insurance company, they're going to give you a guarantee that your income will never run out of money. Okay, so the people who live shorter lives subsidize the income of those who live longer lives. Tom Hegna often calls these mortality credits. Safety first approach, SPIA, basically guarantees it's a less expensive way to guarantee that you'll never run out of money. Now, having said all of this, why is it that the vast majority of Americans refuse to put money into SPIAs? Why are SPIAs such a non-starter for most Americans? Well, number one, they're asking themselves, if I'm getting a fixed stream of income and my retirement is likely to last 30 to 40 years, how am I supposed to keep up with inflation? Okay, so that stream of income is slowly eroding over time. How am I going to make up for that inflation erosion? I'm gonna have to take money out of my stock market portfolio to compensate. Loss of liquidity. When you take money off your balance sheet and you give it to an insurance company and they pool that risk and you get a stream of income in exchange for it, you lose liquidity on that money. And seeing that that asset disappear from your balance sheet can be very disconcerting for a lot of people. In fact, they list that as one of the primary reasons why they don't do SPIAs. And then finally, what I call the Mack truck factor. So let's say that you give $500,000 to an insurance company because you think you have a Methuselah gene and you are likely to outlive everyone in the gene pool. You draw income for 2 years, and you step off a curb and you get flattened by a Mack truck. Well, guess what? You lost out on all that income that you would have received over the balance of your retirement, and you know that $500,000 asset got removed from your balance sheet, and nobody gets that money. Your kids don't get it. You know who gets it? The insurance company and the people who live longer lives. Those are the ones that get it. And so this is one of the reasons why historically people have shied away from the SPIA or the safety first approach. So how has the insurance industry adapted? I think they've adapted quite well, quite ingeniously, actually. And so a while ago, onto the scene emerged the fixed index annuity that had a guaranteed lifetime income feature. What does that give you? Well, it gave you liquidity on your assets right up until the point where you decided to draw a guaranteed lifetime income. And that liquidity, even though it's 10% in a given year, speaks peace to people's souls when they are faced with a prospect of giving all of their money away to an insurance company. It allows for the possibility of inflation hedge. So in other words, the growth of the money in these portfolios is linked to the upward movement of a stock market index. As that index creeps up over time, that can nudge up the guaranteed lifetime income as well. So that is something that is important for people. And then finally, there's a death benefit feature, which basically says that should you die 2 years into having drawn income, there is still money that's left over that would go to your beneficiary. So there's that sensation of having given everything to the insurance company and getting nothing in return should you endure an untimely demise. Now, all these features are great, but how do most advisors implement these annuities in their clients' financial plans? Well, they typically do it in the following way. They roll an IRA into a fixed index annuity. They slap an income rider on there. They don't always do this, but a lot of times they'll slap an income rider on there. They'll let that money marinate for 5 to 10 years. Think, Allianz 222, where you can't really touch the money for 10 years. And then once you hit that magical moment, might be the 5-year, 10-year period threshold, you can begin drawing a guaranteed lifetime possibility for inflation adjustment lifetime income. Okay, so it's a very, very attractive way to mitigate a lot of the misgivings that people have with the traditional SPIA approach. And what happens to the money that's not rolled into the annuity? It gets invested right back into the stock market. So a lot of people really subdivide their assets. They allocate their assets in retirement among 2 different categories. First, to a guaranteed lifetime income annuity, and then the rest goes into a sort of a well-balanced, diversified portfolio, typically in the stock market. Okay, now most of the industry doesn't recognize this, or if they do, they don't verbally allow for it. But there are some huge potential flaws with this approach, particularly in a rising tax rate environment. Number one, if you have guaranteed lifetime income coming out of your tax deferred bucket, it is exposed to tax rate risk. We are in a rising tax rate environment. If you don't believe me, listen to any of my podcasts where I talk about all of the experts in our field who have nothing to gain by telling you that tax rates are going up, and they are affirming over and over and over again that tax rates are likely to rise quickly over the next 10 years. Well, guess what? If you are locking that guaranteed lifetime income into the tax deferred bucket, if tax rates go up, you are now going to have a hole in your guaranteed lifetime income. And how are most people going about plugging that hole? By spending down their stock market assets to compensate. So they're going to have much fewer assets to pay for shock expenses, aspirational expenses over the balance of their life. They're going to run out of money faster utilizing the traditional approach. Guaranteed lifetime income also counts as provisional income because it's coming out of your tax deferred bucket. Therefore, it dramatically increases the likelihood that your Social Security will be taxed. If you now have a hole in your Social Security, how do most people go about plugging that hole? by spending down all of their other stock market assets to compensate. These two things alone could cause you to run out of stock market assets 10 to 12 years faster than you otherwise would have. And by the way, once that guaranteed lifetime stream of income is elected in the tax deferred bucket, there is no escape hatch. There is no ability to do a Roth conversion after that point. In other words, you have cemented your fate. The die has been cast, as it were. And even if you have an annuity that does allow for a Roth conversion, 95% of the annuity companies that I've seen out there say, yeah, we'll let you do a Roth conversion, but we're going to require that you convert that entire annuity all in 1 year, thereby doubling your tax rate, which is the very thing that we are attempting to avoid. So in the hopes of avoiding a doubling tax rates over time, what did we do? We doubled our tax rate in the short term, which of course forces us to spend down all of our other assets to compensate. By the way, my experience tells me that 99% of the industry sells annuities precisely this way. They do it within the tax deferred bucket, and they don't have any intention of ever shifting that money to tax-free. So all of your competition out there, this is exactly how they're positioning these annuities, with all of the attendant problems that go right along with it. So what is the POZ solution? You know, I've defined in my podcast and my books what I like to call a grand unified theory, which basically says, how can we mitigate all of the risks out there such that we have a much higher likelihood that our money lasts as long as we do. The first step is to utilize what I call, an annuity with what I call a piecemeal internal Roth conversion feature. What is a piecemeal internal Roth conversion feature? It is an annuity that allows you to convert that annuity internally over whatever time frame your financial plan calls for, in whatever amounts your financial plan calls for. This allows you to convert smaller amounts. You don't have to convert it all at once in one lump sum. You can convert it over a 5 to 10 year time frame if that's what your strategy calls for you. And this allows you to stretch that tax liability out over a much longer period of time, thereby allowing you to stay in those lower tax brackets and keep more of your money. Of course, this approach begs a couple of very important questions, and the first of which is, okay, if we have this little 5 to 10 year Roth conversion period before we can touch our guaranteed inflation-adjusted tax-free stream of lifetime income, we can't touch that lifetime income until the Roth conversion period is over. What are we supposed to live on in the meantime? What are we supposed to pay taxes with in the meantime? What are we supposed to utilize to fund our LIRPs in the meantime? And how can we grow this money such that we don't lose any in the stock market? We don't subject ourselves to the pernicious effects of sequence of return risk. Because remember, most people are funding their lifestyles out of a stock market portfolio during the beginning years of their retirement. Therefore, they are massively exposed to sequence of return risk. How do you meet your lifestyle needs, and how do you grow your money safely and productively during that 5 to 10 year Roth conversion period? And the second question, of course, is how do you invest the portion of your portfolio that's not earmarked for the annuity, but is earmarked for those discretionary expenses that you're going to want to tap into once the Roth conversion period is done? In other words, once the Roth conversion period is done, you're going to have your Social Security, you're going to have your guaranteed lifetime income. But what about those shock and aspirational expenses that invariably arise along the way? How do we grow the money that's earmarked for that? Well, all of that is what drove us to create POZ Portfolios. And POZ Portfolios are basically divided into 6 different areas or buckets, whatever you want to call them, pools of money. The first one is basically cash. We're saying, hey, look, we want to allocate whatever's required to pay for your lifestyle expenses in year one. We're going to allocate that to cash. We can't risk losing money in that, in that portion of our portfolio, because we need it to be there to pay for lifestyle expenses. And then we're going to create another portfolio, POZ Portfolio 1, that's going to be earmarked for dollars that need to be utilized in years 2 and 3. Portfolio 2, earmarked for years 4 and 5, Portfolio 3, years 6 and 7, and then Portfolio 4, years 8 and 9. And then anything that does not is not earmarked or allocated towards those lifestyle tax LIRP needs during the first 9 years of retirement is going to automatically be allocated to Portfolio 5. And Portfolio 5 is a much higher risk, pedal to the metal portfolio that is designed to fund all of your discretionary needs once that conversion period is over. So let's dig into these portfolios a little bit deeper and flesh this out a little bit more. Each portfolio has a different investment horizon, a different risk tolerance, and a different rate of return. So for example, in the portfolio that is designed to grow money that will be spent in years 1 and 2, that has a much lower risk, a much shorter maturity on those bond type instruments than you would have in your Portfolio 4 that is earmarked for years 8 and 9 of retirement. Okay, so each segmented portfolio assumes a different level of risk. Portfolios 1 through 4, they're all invested safely and productively so as to avoid sequence of return risk. Remember, these are the dollars that we're using to fund lifestyle expenses, taxes on Roth conversions, and LIRP premiums. We can't afford to draw those dollars out of a portfolio that is going to be down during any of those years. Remember, the first 10 years of retirement, that's your danger zone. You do not want to take money out of an asset that's in a down market during those first 10 years. We know that sequence of return risk is especially deadly during those first 10 years, particularly when the Roth conversions are taking place. And like I said, when we have taken sequence of return risk off the table, when we know that we have our guaranteed lifetime, our living expenses guaranteed for the rest of our life, that gives us a permission slip, as it were, to really take a lot more risk in that Portfolio 5, which is going to be an aggressive stock portfolio. And finally, once conversion is complete and guaranteed lifetime income begins, like I said, clients can afford to take much, much more risk in the stock market portfolio, because at that point, you've got your guaranteed lifetime income and sequence of return risk has been eliminated. All right, what's the selling point here for your clients and prospects? Why does this approach make so much sense? First of all, it's easy for clients to understand. They can really wrap their brains around this idea of sequence of return risk. They understand that it has to be eliminated. They understand that their dollars can be, the lifespan of their dollars can be chopped in half if they succumb to sequence of return risk. It provides for lifestyle needs during the Roth conversion period, during that, when that piecemeal internal Roth conversion is being executed within your fixed index annuity. Okay, it is going to provide for living expenses regardless of what is happening in the stock market. And this is very easy for clients to wrap their brain around. It's also going to allow their clients to, the money that is not allocated towards cash for Portfolios 1 through 4 is going to be allocated in Portfolio 5, and that allows them to grow that money much more aggressively. Like I said in my book, you cannot become a shrinking violet with your stock market assets just because you're retired. Okay, you need to grow those monies productively over the balance of your retirement, or your money will not last as long as you do. It also allows clients to invest the net present value required to reach the spending goals of each separate portfolio. So for example, if I'm making an allocation to Portfolio 4, which is the money I'm going to be tapping into in years 8 and 9, I can figure out the net present value. In other words, if I think that money is going to grow at 4%, how much money would I have to put in that account today, knowing that it's going to grow at 4% over the next 8 or 9 years, such that by the time I reach that 8 or 9 year time frame, it will have grown to the amount that I need to meet my lifestyle needs at that point in time. What this does is, if you don't have to put as much into Portfolios 1 through 4, because we're calculating the net present value on those allocations, that allows us to put much more money into the Portfolio 5, which is really where we want to have a lot of money, because that money is going to be growing much more aggressively. So this, of course, all of this begs the question, if there were only a single book that described the danger of tax rate risk, the danger of longevity risk, and explained how to mitigate both risks within a single unified strategy. Remember, 99% of advisors out there can help a client mitigate tax rate risk. 99% of them can show you how to mitigate longevity risk. Easy, put your money into an annuity, right? But how many advisors out there know how to mitigate both risks within the very same financial plan? Usually you gotta choose. It's always one or the other. You're mitigating, for example, longevity risk by putting money into an annuity at the expense of mitigating tax rate risk, okay? So how do you mitigate both risks within a single unified strategy? And oh, by the way, what are the mechanics of converting an IRA annuity to a Roth IRA using that piecemeal internal Roth conversion? Are there details behind the scenes that your clients need to know about? And also, what is the importance of the LIRP? And how do you incorporate it into a comprehensive POZ strategy? And finally, how do you invest your non-annuity assets safely and productively during that critical Roth conversion period? Is there a book out there that explains in clear and explicit terms how to solve all of these problems, how to mitigate all of these risks, how to accomplish all of these strategies? And the answer, of course, is yes. Tax-free income for life, coming to a bookstore near you on November 17th. Most of you have had the, I've been able to send most of you the PDF for tax-free income for life. Hopefully you've had the ability to read it, particularly the chapter that talks about time-segmented investing, because it's so absolutely critical to the grand unified POZ retirement strategy. So the question becomes, do these 5 portfolios exist? If so, where can you find them? And this is where we're proud to introduce POZ Wealth Management. It's been a long time in coming, but we're very, very proud to roll this out. Now, what are the advantages of the POZ, of being an IAR with POZ Wealth Management? Well, first of all, it gives you a home to have your life, annuities, and assets under management all in one place. Remember, tax-free income for life is setting the table for a life insurance sale, an annuity sale, and an assets under management sale. Your client reads that book, they are going to feel impressed to implement all of those strategies. You now have the ability to find all of those in one place. That allows you to leverage the POZ brand to help you build your AUM business. In other words, if David McKnight is calling for a specific time-segmented strategy, a specific time-segmented approach to investing during those first critical 5 to 10 years of retirement, and you have the ability to bring those the exact portfolios created by David McKnight to your client, that is going to help you close a lot more business, particularly if they've read the entire book and they've taken it to heart. Like I said, it allows you to piggyback on what is written in the Tax-Free Income for Life book, and it gives you access to all 5 of our exclusive POZ portfolios that are designed to dovetail perfectly with the POZ Grand Unified Strategy. Now, because POZ Wealth Management plugs into FIG's existing infrastructure, so many of you are wondering, how's POZ Wealth Management able to do this? We are plugging into FIG's existing infrastructure. They have an RIA as well called Alpha Star Capital Management. We are plugging into their existing infrastructure. So their back office, their ecosystem, we are plugging right into their ecosystem. And it also will help. Now all of a sudden, all of these different disparate parts are now talking to each other. So that's going to facilitate transfer of funds from AUM to IUL, AUM to annuities. All of these different parts are now talking to each other in a cohesive and a coherent way. Like I said, it gives you access to the exclusive POZ portfolios. Now you can track annuity AUM and soon to be life all on one screen. So you can have all of your annuities or your clients' assets, be they AUM, annuity, and soon to be life insurance, all in one place. And it also gives you access And I'm really proud to roll this out today and to really let you guys take a look at this. Access to the exclusive POZ portfolio calculator. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, okay, so you've got all these portfolios. I come to you, how am I supposed to figure out how to allocate the client's portfolio among all of these different portfolios? We got net present value calculations. We've got to figure in inflation. We're allocating money among 5 different portfolios. How do I know how much money goes in portfolio 1 through 4? How much goes into cash? How much goes into portfolio 5? This seems pretty complicated, Dave. How are we supposed to pull this off? So I would like to share with you today. This is just a screenshot, but this is the POZ portfolio calculator. So if you look at this on the left, you'll see this is where the client's basic income goes, total taxable balance, total tax deferred balances, total tax-free balances, how much of their total assets they're contributing to the annuity, what's their lifestyle need, how frequently are they going to be distributing money from these portfolios, do they have a pension, and how old are they? And then we come over here and we say, okay, are they doing a Roth conversion? If so, over what? And when we say Roth conversion, we're saying a conversion essentially of that annuity. If so, over what period of time? And what is the annual pre-tax Roth conversion amount? All of this is important because we got to figure out how to pay the tax on that Roth conversion. Okay, very, very important. So all of this has to be figured into your cash flow. Right below that, you'll see life insurance info. This is where you would put the LIRP contribution. Very important because we have to account for what's going into the LIRP and over what time frame, along with the taxes that will have to be paid on the distribution taken from the IRA to be put into the LIRP. If you look down right here, this is where you look to find out how much money needs to be allocated based on the above information into each of these portfolios. Cash, and by the way, these are dummy numbers, so don't take these too seriously. In this case, cash, 208,000, years 2 and 3, we'd have to contribute 410,000 today to grow it to the proper amount by years 2 and 3. So this tells you exactly how to allocate money among all of these various portfolios. And then we have a calculation summary over here on the right, where it says, okay, how many total assets do the clients have? How much do they contribute to the annuity? How much went to cash and all the other portfolios? So this calculator is designed to do all of the heavy lifting for you. All right, let's talk about the investment platform overview, because at the end of the day, you will need access to the Power of Zero portfolios, but that's not all that you'll need access to. IARs with POZ Wealth Management can leverage an open architecture investment platform called Compass, which is just a white label name for Envestnet, ENVESTNET. It allows that each client has unique needs. It's not enough to just have access to POZ portfolios. You can't just shove a one-size-fits-all approach down the throats of your clients and prospects. You have to have other alternatives. You need the full spectrum of investment tools, and finally, you have to have the ability to integrate securities and insurance solutions. What do these solutions include? Of course, the third-party strategist models, Russell, Vanguard, etc. An open platform, so you have access to all of these different mutual funds, ETFs, bond ladder strategies, so on and so forth. And then, of course, for some of your higher-end clients, you've got the the DSTs, the structured notes, and some alternative investments. All of these are available to you. So all of the things that are available to you now in your existing platform would be available to you in this new platform. And this is, of course, the perfunctory disclosure. Now, in anticipation of your questions, we have preemptively answered a few questions for you. What do I get if I become an IAR with POZ Wealth Management? What do I get? Well, first of all, you're going to get access to those exclusive POZ portfolios. You're going to be able to tap into the exclusive FIG, Alpha Star Capital, POZ Wealth, concierge level service. So there is a whole infrastructure already in place that is ready to serve you. We are tapping into AlphaStar Capital's existing infrastructure. You're going to get all of the concierge level service that you would expect to receive, full back office ecosystem, and then all of the technology stack that is associated with that InvestNet platform. Who's going to help you with your investment cases? You and your team will have a single point of contact to work with on all things AUM. So this whole system is designed to allow you to do what we've always said. We want you to spend all your time in front of your clients developing relationships. Let our back office, let our infrastructure do all of the heavy lifting in terms of case designs, comprehensive planning cases with Money Guide Pro or Money Guide Elite. Let us take all of that off your plate. What else does Compass bring to the table? It's embedded with Morningstar Analytics, and you'll also have access to RiskWise, Hidden Levers, Y Charts, Quanti, and more. So all of those investment analysis tools that you are accustomed to using, you'll have access to by plugging into this already existent infrastructure. All right, what is the cost for these funds? Now, platform costs are tiered from 40 basis points down to 17 basis points based on the AUM that you bring to the table. There's going to be a couple of different breakpoints. The biggest ones are at 25 million and at 50 million, and then it goes up from there. You get no haircut on the advisor fee. So if you're charging 1%, you get to keep the full 1%. Model management depends on which solution you are offering the client. If it's a POZ portfolio, that's going to be 20 basis points. If it's a different solution, it might be anywhere from 0 to 30 basis points. So here's an example for you. Let's say you charge your 1% advisor fee. You've got 30 bips as a platform fee and 20 bips for a POZ model portfolio fee. All in for the client is going to be 1.5%. And I think that you'll find that in the RIA environment, even amidst this cost compression environment, that is a pretty competitive way to go. All right, what custodian choices do you have available to you? The principal ones are TD Ameritrade and Schwab. Fidelity is also an option. What are your investment choices? Well, as we've already suggested, POZ portfolios you will have access to. A wide variety of other stock models, ETFs, mutual funds, so on and so forth. Vanguard, Russell, AlphaStar, to name a few. And then really AlphaStar Capital is constantly assessing the offerings that they have through InvestNet so that they're always optimizing the choice that you have. And then ultimately, accounts can be advisor-driven models. You might have a unified managed account, a separately managed account, and then all of your ETF models. What are the electronic signature capabilities? We offer Firelight on TD Ameritrade account opening paper, and then other solutions that are associated with those other custodians. A Firelight, for those of you who don't know, is similar to, say, a laser app where you can get all of your business. I was talking to Sean, I said, in what instance would we ever need a wet signature to get money moved over? And he said, internally, we don't need wet signatures. There may be some other entity from which the money is coming that needs a wet signature. He says, we can do everything electronically. All right, how do you bill? They bill quarterly in arrears, fairly commonplace in our industry. Do you offer transition services for accounts that would be coming over to POZ Wealth Management? And that is really the ecosystem you're plugging into. That is their sweet spot. That is what they do. They will start off by doing a full book of business review and then help you with all of the paperwork. And if you have a really, really large book, they can leverage their InvestNet and custodian relationships to help transition all that money over with as little heartache and stress as possible. And of course, your dedicated sales and service team, they're all in place, ready to help you. And then we also help you, if there is an investment that you really, really like that for some reason is not available within the POZ Wealth Management ecosystem, we will help you map your current investments to like investments within the POZ platform. What do you do about your BD business? Well, you can leave your BD business right where it is. There's no reason to change BDs if you don't really want to. If you do want to, then there is a strategic network of broker dealers that FIG has a relationship with. They'd be happy to make an introduction. If you are heavy into the 401k or the retirement plan business, you can keep doing that. That's typically off platform and should not affect any of the current relationships that you have. If you're looking for a relationship to fill that void in your practice, we can make recommendations. And finally, what are my costs? Okay, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. If you are bringing over $10 million of assets or more, you do not have any monthly expense, okay? It's all on us. If you are bringing over between $1 million and $10 million, then there's gonna be a $195 per month expense that you'd have to pay every single month until you get to that $10 million threshold. And if you have less than $1 million, it's gonna cost you $495 per month. It shouldn't take you very long to get to the $1 million mark if you're doing this the right way. All right, next steps. Really what we recommend, if this is at all appealing to you, and we know that switching RIAs is not an insignificant step, okay? We totally recognize all of the headache and heartache that goes along with switching an RIA. However, if you are looking at least to explore what the next steps are, we would recommend that you have a transition assessment with either Larry Lotwin, okay, he's with Alpha Star, but he's also being leveraged to work with POZ as well. You can contact him by email or directly on his landline, or Vince, oh, I love this Italian name, Travaglini, Vince Travaglini. He's also with Alpha Star, and he can be contacted directly. And both of those are happy to answer all your questions and tell you what the next steps are to be able to get transitioned over to POZ Wealth Management if that's what you decide to do.